This is Dune Talk, a DuneNewsNet.com production. Join us now for the latest Dune news, reactions, and lively discussions.
Hey everyone, hope you've had a great start to 2023. We have made it. This is the year when Dune Part 2 comes out. The full crew is back and we're excited to welcome you to today's Dune Talk show. If you're joining us for the very first time, you found the official show of DuneNewsNet.com. This is the place where we cover everything Dune, movie news, Dune the Sisterhood TV series updates, book reviews, interviews with creators, and more. This is Marcus, your editor at DuneNewsNet.com, and I can't wait to talk about the recent movie and TV news with all the Dune Talk regulars.
Hey, it's Garin. So glad to be back. It's been a hot minute since we've done a show. We're just really excited to be back. This really is going to be the year where everything comes out for part 2. We've got the Sisterhood. There's just so much Dune stuff coming out. I'm just really excited to be back with the guys. And certainly we're glad to have Johnny and Simon back. Simon was gone for a little while. And we're just so glad we're back together again. So welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels surreal that it's already 2023. I mean, yeah, it's so cliche, but I feel like the last year just flew by. This time last year, we were getting all the nominations and awards for Dune and whatnot. And we're a year away, I guess, now from Dune 2, getting all those awards and nominations. So it's fun, it's different, and certainly glad to be back on the show recording again and here with the whole gang, especially Simon joining us again. So thank you all for tuning in, and it's going to be a really special year. This is kind of the year everything changes, I feel like, for Dune.
Hey, Simon back. Yeah, thank you to everyone that knew what happened. Brief history. I had open heart surgery, so I was out of the picture for 50 days in the hospital. Guys, it's been a year exactly today that Dune came out in home release. Isn't that crazy?
Oh my gosh, that is crazy, actually.
It showed up on my, I think, Instagram timeline a year ago today. I was like, yep, and we were so excited about getting that home release. And now, just any pictures, anything from part 2. Come on, legendary Warner Brothers. I actually have a great marketing idea when we get to something. But great to be back.
Yeah, great to be back with everybody again, and some exciting stories to discuss today. So let's go ahead and dive into some movie news.
Dune movie news.
First up, casting news. Tim Blake Nelson was added to the cast of Dune Part 2, though it's not yet been revealed which character he's playing. So to add some clarity here, and as we're going to discuss in our next story after this, production on the movie has indeed already wrapped. Like the other actors, Nelson has shot his scenes last year. However, it's only now being officially announced that he joined. This is the 5th formal casting announcement for the second Dune movie, following Florence Pugh, Austin Butler, Christopher Walken, and Léa Seydoux. Based on the reports, it sounds like Nelson has a significant role. So which possibilities are there? Not too many, to be honest. Majority of reactions on social media were people saying he must be Count Hasmir Fenring, and that totally makes sense in terms of appearance, and also considering Lady Fenring is in the movie. She's played by Seydoux. Fenring, yeah, in my opinion at least, it would be extremely odd decision to leave the Count out of this adaptation. Sounds likely, but there are other plausible options, right? Another significant major character from the books is Staben Tuek, leader of the smugglers on Arrakis. Villeneuve has left a lot of room for world building in Dune Part 2, and it would be really interesting for him to show us this key faction on Arrakis. And you know, it's a really different way of life that you can see from then, and we know that Gurney has interactions with them. Starting with you, Garin, I want to hear your reactions to Nelson being cast in the movie, and who do you expect or hope he'll be playing?
I really like Tim Blake Nelson. I think he really is a formidable actor. He's done so many films and TV. His career is just lengthy. I really think this is an actor of the caliber that can do something as complex as Count Fenring. So we haven't seen Count Fenring in the '84 movie. It wasn't included. It wasn't in the script. But I agree with you. I believe, Marcus, this is a pivotal character. It's a really important character, even to bolster the reasoning for the Harkonnen shift in the plot. I think it's really an important part to have a character who plays Count Fenring in a very accurate way. And I really think Tim Blake Nelson, he's done so much. I recently watched some interviews with him. Very skilled actor, really great person. I just really think, I really believe that this is Count Fenring. I know that he could be one of the smugglers, Steban Tuek. I think that's also a good theory. But to me, I really believe that this is Count Fenring. I think that he can play the eccentricities of Count Fenring, which we read right from the book, but I think he can do it in a way that really blends well with Léa Seydoux and the other actors that he would interact with, particularly his relationship with the Emperor. So that's my vote.
I'm gonna go with Garin. I didn't recognize the name at first, and then I did a little IMDb spying research. So what I was the most impressed on his IMDb was the Watchmen miniseries, as he plays not Rorschach, but a character very much like Rorschach. And I remember him being my favorite character and being like, wow, this actor has chops. How come he's not, working more in Hollywood? But Count Fenring would make only sense. I remember when this news got announced, me and Marcus were talking on Discord. I was like, Count Fenring, like question mark, like instantly. Dune Part 2 will have a lot more characters. We're going to be opening up the world a lot to both Harkonnen, Atreides, Fremens, and other houses. But I think Count Fenring has to be in it and plays such an important role. And Denis has said that we're going to get more Harkonnen stuff. Fenring will also open to the Harkonnens and Fae and the rest of them. So I think it's Count Fenring. I'm okay with whoever it is. I'm just happy it's another great actor. Can't wait to see his performance interact with Walken, Chalamet, whoever he's playing. So all good stuff.
Yeah, I'd certainly echo all of that. And I'm not going to fixate on it too much, but just all the speculation has been so funny, I feel like, because it's so obvious that it's Fenring. Like, I'm not going to say I'll bet my life that it's Fenring, but I certainly feel very confident that there's nothing else. Based on Fenring in the book, we know that he is kind of a creepy little, Weasley kind of guy. And with all due respect to Tim Blake Nelson, he plays creepy Weasley kind of guys really well. And so I think that just is a perfect fit. As soon as I saw him, it came to mind. So I think that as far as the reason why we haven't heard or gotten a confirmation, I know some people have been kind of speculating about that as well. I think it's really just a matter of, we don't know the exact reason why, but a lot of these things, finding about Léa Seydoux later on, in this Tim Blake Nelson report, this Tim Blake Nelson thing, it's not an official announcement. It's a report saying that Tim Blake Nelson is in Dune. That's not something that's coming from the studio directly necessarily, like a press release or something. And it's not something where, we were wondering, well, when Sharon Duncan Brewster ended up playing Liet Kynes, we were like, well, how didn't we know about that? Or like, how did no one report that? Why wasn't it in the press release when they started production? I mean, some of these things just come down simply to timing, and sometimes it's even contractual what's in a press release or what isn't. So I definitely wouldn't put too much stock in that. And as as Marcus rightfully pointed out at the start of this, that he did film. He was in there, like in Budapest, most likely filming and everything. That's already done. It's not like they're like, oh, we need to come up with this whole brand new character after we're done shooting, and we need to cast Tim Blake Nelson to go play him. So I think that all the conversation has been kind of funny, but yes, I think he would be a very good Fenring. I think we speculated or talked about maybe who we would like to see as a Fenring previously, maybe on the show. And I know the one person that I kept going back to is Willem Dafoe. And I think he would have been a really good choice, but I think they have very similar stature, very similar physicality. They can play likable and kind of funny, but then they also have like a more darker side that they can play as well. So I think it's a really good fit, and he's just a great character actor, and he is underrated. Simon pointed out, like, why haven't I seen this guy in more stuff? I loved him in Watchmen, and I think that he'll be a great addition, especially as for, I think, some fans, especially ones that have nostalgia for the Lynch film. They kind of want a little bit more like weirdness and maybe kind of like almost campiness injected into Villeneuve's Dune, and I think we might be able to get a little bit of that with not just the inclusion of Fenring as a character, but also with Tim Blake Nelson specifically playing the character. I think that can be a really fun take. So I'm really excited, and I didn't expect to get more Dune casting news, right around this time. So, hey, it was just a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that dozens of other actors have been cast in Dune Part 2 for minor roles, and they've shot their scenes last year, but none of them have been formally announced. I mean, like, as they've been come up, you see sometimes IMDb being updated, or you see it on their CVs, but there haven't been any formal announcements. So the fact that Nelson did get this announcement, even though it was through the trades, it does indicate that he will have a significant part, not just a brief cameo. But who knows? Villeneuve could completely surprise us, and maybe bring in a character from the later books, Guild Navigator, anyone. But, yeah.
I think just the pairing of him and Léa Seydoux is such a fun combination. Yeah. So I love her as a performer, and I think that they'll be fun to see on screen together. And as Simon mentioned, just all the different characters that we could potentially see Fenring interact with. Again, presuming that he is Fenring. I think it's just going to be it's going to add to kind of the world building and exploring. The Fenrings have a very specific reason for being in the novel, and I'm excited to see how much Villeneuve explores that. And I'm just glad that some people had speculated, well, maybe Seydoux is going to be like a composite character almost, like maybe she'll kind of just be the one Fenring stand-in, or other people have been saying that Tim Blake Nelson. I had said earlier on, after Léa Seydoux was cast, because that was Lady Margot Fenring, I was like, okay, there's going to be another character. I think this casting is going to come later at some point. And if people remember, I mentioned Sharon Duncan Brewster, who plays Kynes, who is an even more significant character. We didn't hear that she was even in the movie until the Vanity Fair piece, which came out a year after they started filming the movie. And so that was a complete surprise. And then Stephen McKinley Henderson, who played Thufir, he was in the press release as the actor, but they didn't say who he was playing. Now, right away, I was like, okay, he's playing Thufir, because that's such a perfect fit. I think it's going to be a similar situation here. We didn't find out about McKinley Henderson until the Vanity Fair piece, and I feel like we're probably not going to know that this, Nelson is Fenring until we get, the first big, exposure to Dune Part 2, whenever that may be. Hopefully in a few months, not too far away.
Next story. As mentioned, Dune Part 2 has officially wrapped its principal photography and is now in post-production. Back on December 12th, Timothée Chalamet took to Instagram with a nice photo of himself and his father in the desert to confirm that filming was complete. And that basically concluded 5 months of production, give or take, including shoots in Italy, Hungary, Jordan, and finally in the United Arab Emirates. Johnny, knowing that they were out in the desert filming through to mid-December, does that change anything in terms of your predictions on timelines, not only the marketing, but also film festivals?
Not so much. We already know that they've adjusted the release date, and that was a while back at this point. That was in the fall. I know I think it was Deadline, maybe, or Variety had posted an article where they were kind of speculating which films this year could go to the festivals, and they did mention, and again, who knows if they have inside info on this, but they speculated at least that Dune Part 2 could go back to Venice. Now that would be a September screening, and it's not unusual that some films go to festivals and then they're not necessarily done, or they're not maybe totally finished. Maybe there's more editing to do. Who knows? I think it's going to be really close if they try to do that, but it's not impossible. I just don't think, we kind of knew that they were going to run this long, and so it doesn't really change my thought process on it. I think as far as the timeline, it all seems pretty well in place. I don't think we're going to get a real look at the movie as far as photos or a magazine spread like Vanity Fair did. Oppenheimer, which is another super anticipated movie for this year, Nolan's next movie, that got a magazine spread recently, and that's not out until July. So I wouldn't expect any sort of images, a story on it until at least, March, April, maybe at the earliest. Vanity Fair's piece, I think, came out around that time, during Dune Part 1, and Dune Part 2 Dune Part 1 was supposed to release in October at that time. So I think, or even November. So I think that still makes sense. And I wouldn't anticipate getting a trailer, really seeing any footage necessarily until the summertime, most likely, when a lot of the year's first big blockbusters are going to be coming out, based on other trailer timelines and whatnot. It would make sense to have it out around maybe May or June, before people go to the theaters and start seeing a bunch of movies where trailers are naturally going to be showing up.
I was actually thinking about the trailer today for, the 500th time during the day. There's a new Indiana Jones movie coming out, and I know that's a Paramount film, but how great would it be if we get a Dune Part 2 trailer before Indy? Because I feel like the crowd that goes to see Indy would be a crowd that would be interested in Dune Part 2. I think that's one of the biggest movies I can think of that's not a Marvel movie or a DC movie. Oppenheimer looks amazing, but I don't know if that's something you want to market Dune Part 2 with, and I feel like that would be too close to Dune's release date. That's just what I was thinking. Maybe with Indy, or like me and my boss were talking, maybe there'll be a little teaser during the Super Bowl. Let's not forget, a lot of people also watch the Super Bowl here in America, and a lot of films have even a quick minute and a half teaser, and then later on we get a full trailer. So I don't think we're going to get it with Ant-Man this upcoming month, but I think it'll be more down the line with Indy, and maybe during the Super Bowl we'll get something. Right now, I want an image. Like, I want an official image. And I was thinking about this when I was talking about marketing and Warner Brothers. I know we haven't mentioned it yet, but Austin Butler, who less than a year ago we were going, who has won a Golden Globe for Best Dramatic Performance in Elvis. Now, how great would it be for Warner Brothers to be like, you loved Austin Butler and Elvis, here's a little preview of him, just a little image of Faye Rotha from Part 2. That would get the hype up for Austin Butler, also Warner Brothers, which we all know they've been struggling, and Dune 2 would start to be coming in everyone's eye and being like, oh, I really like that Elvis movie. Maybe I should watch the first Dune and see what he's going to be like in Dune 2. Just holding a crest knife, just a simple little image.
Wait, Simon, you're saying Villeneuve knew better than all the stands online when Butler was cast a year ago? You think he got the right choice for that?
He did. I think him and Baz Luhrmann had a nice little conversation. I'm still amazed by Austin's performance in Elvis. I think it's one of the best ones I've seen in years.
Yeah, it's funny. I just keep thinking the same about how ahead of the curve Villeneuve was with some of those casting decisions. Villeneuve and his whole team, of course. I mean, like with Austin Butler, like skyrocketing in popularity, that's basically another fan base that's going to like be interested in Dune now because of a specific actor.
Yes, Austin Butler, I just can't get over how funny it was, because when he was announced, I was like, and we talked about it on the show, of course. And I had only really seen him in his very small appearance in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And I was just like, I don't know why. I feel like this is going to like work out. Like, I just think that I can see what they're going for. And of course, I also knew that Elvis was coming out, and I had good info on that, but it's just the way things work sometimes over the last year. I mean, how quickly that's gone by. I think he might have been cast in like March of last year. It's just, it kind of leaves your head spinning. But yeah, it's a good point that, Austin Butler's profile is on the rise. Florence Pugh, of course, is always in the conversation. Zendaya is still winning awards for Euphoria, and of course, a lot of the other cast are always in these films from last year and even going into this year. So Florence Pugh, she's in Oppenheimer. I mean, it's just, there's all that synergy, and I think that casting certainly those decisions, you go for who fits the role the best, obviously. And if you have all these extra benefits, awards and otherwise, then, so be it.
Simon, I would expect there to be a Dune Part 2 trailer with trailer with the Oppenheimer film, only because I think there's a really strong overlap between fans of those two directors. I just think I think that would make sense to me. In fact, I wish I could peer into the minds of the marketers behind Dune Part 2 to kind of know where are they going to get the most bang for their buck in terms of visibility, because this is the second part. This is the second film, Part 2, right? So there's already an audience worldwide. Is your strategy to expand that? Is your strategy to make sure you hit the exact audience again? It'll be interesting to see, how they play with that. But they're working with a known quantity. So how do you expand on that?
Yeah, one quick thing I'll just say to kind of like add to that, because Garin makes a good point. I have to get on record in case I end up being right about any of this. But for Dune Part 1, after we were in the midst of the pandemic, but as things were starting to kind of formulate into what the release was ultimately going to be, the way that they kind of relaunched their whole campaign was with that special fan event with the behind the scenes and the first 10 minutes of the movie, which was such an ingenious idea, I think. And that was also, that coincided with the trailer release online, in that same time span. And so I think it makes sense. Oppenheimer there's that overlap there. Also keep in mind that it's being distributed by Warner Brothers. And so they have some stake in it. And also Dune Part 2, just like the first movie, is going to have large IMAX components, even more, they said, than the first one. And IMAX typically likes to kind of highlight these films with each other. So like Avatar, for example, just this past month or two, they had a special IMAX preview of Mission Impossible. They had special IMAX preview of Creed and all these other movies, and Oppenheimer, actually, which is again months away, but they still had a preview for it that was specifically for IMAX. And Warner Brothers also getting in on the action, again mentioning them. They had a Barbie trailer that was exclusive to theaters, and then the trailer came out, and it was kind of like a surprise, essentially. So I could see something similar happening with I hate to bring up superhero stuff, and especially this particular movie maybe more than others, but Warner Brothers has The Flash coming out in June, which is going to be one of their biggest, if not their biggest movie of the year. And I could see that being one that they would want to have that trailer timed with. And then also, again, thinking of July and Oppenheimer, Mission Impossible comes out in July. That has a large IMAX component. I could see them tying that in. And then Warner Brothers has Barbie in July as well. And the same day, Oppenheimer comes out in IMAX. So I think right in that window, it makes a lot of sense. And Indiana Jones, Simon, also comes out in June, right around The Flash, I believe. So it's going to be, this year is going to be nuts in general. Just for anyone who doesn't know, like there's going to be so many big, good movies. So it's exciting overall. But there's going to be a lot of stuff to kind of thankfully keep us distracted or busy between now and when the actual Dune Part 2 movie comes out.
And Johnny, looking at the performance of Avatar, which obviously killed it both domestically and internationally, does that change your perspective of what could be the ceiling for Dune Part 2's performance?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've been bullish since the beginning about Dune Part 2's prospects at the box office, just because Part 1 did really well, and it did well on HBO Max. It had that component, which was a detriment really to its box office, probably. And it also was really more in like the heart of the pandemic. Obviously, we're going to be, more removed from that time span. And it's got more weight to it now. I mean, people went into Dune like pretty much blind, unless you were a bigger fan or maybe an older fan necessarily. This is it's like a cultural moment now with Dune. And there is some, again, synergy. Avatar has similar themes going on, has similar, it's a sci-fi kind of like epic. People obviously have a taste for that. Now, Dune is not going to have some of those elements that Avatar will, and I'm certainly not expecting the box office to come even close, but I do think it's going to perform really, really well. And I think I said this on Twitter. Like, I think my prediction really is that the first one made 400 million worldwide. I think it could possibly get close to doubling that, would be my guess. I like to think of examples of, superhero movies. They come out with the origin film, and maybe it's a lesser known hero like Captain America or something. It makes a few hundred million. Then Captain America 2 comes out and it makes like double that. It makes like 800 million. Batman Begins went from making like less than 400 million, and then The Dark Knight made $1 billion. So I think if you have the right mixture of main kind of highlight actors, and then you have more spectacle, which Dune Part 2 is going to have, more IMAX tickets being sold, a better release window, less COVID, no HBO Max. I think that's kind of like a really good recipe. And again, Avatar, as you point out, no one expected Avatar to do that well. And even I expected it to do really well, and I didn't expect it to do this well. So I think, hopefully, fingers crossed, I do think that Dune Part 2 will see not that big of a jump, but I think it will be a considerable overperformance, would be my feeling. I don't even want to think about it. These days I'm just like, Dune, whatever. I got other stuff to worry about. But when Dune comes back for real, when that Vanity Fair article drops or whatever it's going to be, it's going to be a very fun, exciting time. So that's why we're all here. But yeah, it's going to be a long year, but a good one for sure.
Awesome. So now it's time for our roundup of TV series updates.
Dune TV News.
So, as you know, since our last news discussion on Dune Talk, there have been tons of casting announcements for Dune: The Sisterhood. Travis Fimmel will be one of the show's leads, joining the previously announced Emily Watson and Shirley Henderson. He's playing Desmond Hart, a charismatic soldier with an enigmatic past who seeks to gain the Emperor's trust at the expense of the Sisterhood. Then we have Mark Strong as the Emperor, Javico Carino. The official character description reads, a man from a great line of wartime emperors who is called upon to govern the Imperium and manage a fragile peace. Then there have been tons of other series regulars announced, including Sarah-Sofie Bosnina as Princess Ines. She's heir to the Golden Lion throne and likely the daughter of Javico and Empress Natalia. That's Indira Varma's character. We also have Shalom Brune Franklin as Michaela. She's a Fremen woman who serves the Crinos, but she's actually never set foot on her homeworld of Arrakis. Then we have Chris Mason, who's playing Kieran Atreides. He's likely a direct ancestor to Leto and Paul, a swordmaster to a great house whose ambition to live up to his family name is disrupted when he forms an unexpected connection to a member of the royal family. We also have representation from their rivals in Edward Davis. He's playing Harrow Harkonnen, a rising politician from a once great family who harbors a strong desire to elevate his house to its former glory. And a lot of actors have been announced as sisters or acolytes in the Sisterhood school, including Faulian Cunningham and Jade Anuka. I haven't named them all, but in total we have 14 characters who have been formally announced, and at least one more actor in a yet to be confirmed role. Simon, of all these cast members announced so far, who stands out most to you?
I'm going to go with Mark Strong. I'm a big fan of his. I think he'll give a name. People know who he is, especially if you're a film fan. You look at his IMDb, you know he's done great performance after performance. And he's one of those character actors that you're always like, well, I hope they give him a big break. Kind of like Tim Nelson Blake. And once again, this show is a mystery to me. I'm curious to know where we're going to go with it. And I'm curious to know how much Harkonnens we're going to get, how much Atreides, and how much political intrigue that we're going to get. I'm sure between the Sisterhood we will, but the rest of the known universe. So it's a big mystery. I'm happy that they're announcing stuff, but yet I kind of want to keep this show a mystery and go in fresh and be weekly or, whatever it is, being like, oh my God, I can't believe they did this. One of the shows that blew me away last year was Endor. And look, I'm a big Star Wars fan. I don't care about Rogue One, but that show made me care about that show, not because of Cassian Andor, just because of the side characters that you got introduced to and the political intrigue of it. So that's what I'm hoping with the Sisterhood.
I'm going to just say that this show is a mystery. We really don't know a lot about it. We don't know really what material directly it's going to draw from, or if it's being completely recreated. Just going back 10,000 years before the original Book of Dune. But what I'm glad about is that we have, actors again of the experience level of like Emily Watson and Mark Strong. I think just to pick, I think I'm going to go with Travis Fimmel, only because I watched him in Vikings, that series, and I just thought he just has such gravitas, at least he did in that series. And if he's one of the leads in this, then I think it will lend to the credibility of the series and of his role. I don't know exactly what his character is, or how that will play into the plot lines, but I'm just glad that we have, because there's a lot of characters, a lot of roles in this series, I guess, as is often the case with some of these. And I'm just glad that we have kind of leading out some very formidable, very experienced actors in those three that I mentioned. And obviously, there's probably some new up and coming talent in all these other players in the film or in the series. And, you just never know who could come out on top and who could go on to be someone extremely famous. So yeah, that's my take. I'll go with Travis Fimmel.
Yeah, those are probably the two I'm most excited about as well, by sheer virtue of them being the most visible to me at this point. I've seen Mark Strong in movies and shows for years now. I mean, as long as I can remember, him being in Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr., and he was a great villain in that. And he was the bad guy in Kick-Ass with Aaron Taylor Johnson, 12 years ago, whenever that was. So yeah, he has, I think those are both really good choices. Travis Fimmel, he's got to be like a Sardaukar, right? Like, he looks like a bad dude, and they say he's a soldier, so that seems like maybe he's an ex-Sardaukar, but we'll see what that's all about. But yeah, Mark Strong, I think he'll have a great presence, and as Simon pointed out rightly, he brings his face and his name to the project. And similar to Emily Watson, I think those are really two, like, the most high profile, I would say, of the cast members. But Garin also makes a great point, and that's, I think, what I'm most excited about more than anything isn't one particular person that I'll name, but just all these different names that I don't know yet, but hopefully will be great performers and deliver great, memorable performances as these characters that we have to be introduced to. A year ago this time, no one knew who Millie Alcock was, and House of the Dragon made her like one of the most famous people in the world for a couple of months. You know what I mean? So I think that's what excites me. Similar with like Emma Darcy, and Olivia Cooke was someone who I was familiar with, and she had been in movies and she's always been great, but her profile has just been elevated so much. I could see that happen. HBO, more than anything, I'm just so excited and glad that this is an HBO production, because they have such a strong track record, especially with these genre shows like a Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon. The Last of Us right now is probably going to be like one of the most acclaimed shows of the entire year, and it's January 11th as we record this. So I think as long as the writing's there, I trust the directors, I trust the people casting and HBO, and I just think that it's going to be really, really interesting. And as Simon mentioned also, from my own perspective, like, I don't even really want to think about this too much right now. Like, most of my thought is on Dune Part 2 and seeing what else HBO is going to put out this year, in addition to The Last of Us and Succession, which is one of my favorite shows. This is definitely going to be a 2024 show, I think it's safe to say. Probably won't even hit HBO until after Dune Part 2 is on like Blu-ray. So I think that it's really fun to think about, but it's almost like hard to wrap my head around it at the same time. But all these casting news were very welcome and definitely got me more excited than I thought I even would be. So yeah, I'm just really I'm buzzed about it. I think it's going to be a really interesting take. I mean, we none of us really know what to expect, and we don't have like a ton of information. So fingers crossed. I just hope that you know that they all are able to get some juicy material to work with.
And in terms of production updates, Johan Renck, director of the premiere episodes, confirmed that the filming of Dune: The Sisterhood kicked off on November 22nd. And as of early January, we know that production was still underway. We saw pictures of Strong and Fimmel were photographed near Origo Studios in Budapest. That's where the series is being filmed. We haven't seen anything in terms of timelines, in terms of like how long they're going to be there. Are they going to go to other locations when it's going to wrap? But we have seen, like from past experience, like if you look at a 10-episode TV series that also filmed in locations, they could have been filming for anywhere from 3 to 6 months. So I think, as Johnny was mentioning, it's still a ways off. Like they could be like still producing this thing for another, you know, maybe 3 to 4 months from now. So we'll have to wait on further news on that.
What is the success rate of series like this coming off of, you know, a blockbuster film and staying with the genre? I realize it's 10,000 years before Dune, but it's integrally tied to the same story. So I don't know. It makes me kind of contemplate, well, what if it's so different? I mean, it's in the universe, but what if it's so different from what we know? I guess it has to fly on its own merits, right? I mean, it can't fly on the coattails of the movies, although the awareness, it creates that awareness that this is a similar universe. Well, it is the universe that Dune is in, but I don't know. I wonder, is the success completely and utterly tied, or does it have to prove itself? And what if it doesn't? I don't know. It's just an interesting thought.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think you have the name Dune, so people that are enjoying the films might be like, oh, what is this? And then you have some people that might be like, oh, it's so far in the past, it's a prequel, and sadly, prequels still get a bad rep. Thank you, Mr. George Lucas, for that. But in general, I think it's a little bit of both. I think you'll have the people that are like, oh, I really love Dune, and then people being like, oh, I don't know any of these characters. Why should I be invested in them? It's not like Star Wars, where you get a Kenobi show where you're familiar with Kenobi for, decades now, or something like Boba Fett. But then you look at something like The Mandalorian, which is a Star Wars spinoff. You just had to name Star Wars. And, the whole Baby Yoda Grogu was a mystery until it aired, but people were intrigued by it. So I think it's a little bit of both. Honestly, I think if HBO does a good job of marketing it, and I believe it, and like Johnny said, it's HBO, it's going to look beautiful. It's going to be high intense drama. I mean, HBO is probably the premier studio when they make their own stuff in-house. I haven't seen White Lotus, but I've heard it's beyond amazing. There's never been an HBO show where you're like, I don't know, wasn't that great. Like, one of the best shows ever on TV for me is still Oz, and we're going back like almost 20 years ago, and that was early HBO. The Sopranos is up there, and that was early HBO's show. So like the Last of Us, I know what the game is, but I know Johnny's super excited about the show, and I'll be tuning in this week, I think, when it starts, and being like, okay, I want to see what this is all about for a production, and also just the story. So I think there's a lot of stuff at play.
If the show is good, like I'm saying, if people watch it and they're intrigued and the acting is good and the story is compelling and it looks amazing and sounds amazing, it will have the production values. I have no doubt about that. then it'll be a success and people will watch it and it'll be nominated for awards and all these other things. I think that, to me, that's not the question. Will people dig it? I don't think they're going to go from Dune Part 2 and be like, oh, this isn't like Dune Part 2 and Part 1. I'm not going to watch this. It's too different. I think that, let's use Andor as an example, because not Garin, but Simon was pointing that out. And Andor, I haven't watched all of it. I have watched some of it. And I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan. I'm not even really a Star Wars fan, just putting it bluntly. But I don't think Andor is very different from the Star Wars movies. It's not The Empire Strikes Back. It's not Return of the Jedi. It's very different in tone and style in a lot of ways, but it has good writing. It has good performances, and it has good production values, even compared to like Mandalorian. And so I think that was enough to get people to watch it. It did well with the streaming numbers, and now it's up for Screen Actors Guild Awards and Golden Globes. And, I think that that's just a testament to, even if it's different, if you put in the time and the effort, behind the camera, in front of the camera, I think that you'll find the audience, more often than not. And again, HBO giving it a big platform is, integral to that. And so that makes me more confident than not, I guess I would say.
Yeah, and I think maybe that warrants the whole entire episode, but touching on the source material itself. So we know that the basis for this TV series is the books written by Brian Herbert, Kevin J. Anderson, the Schools of Dune trilogy. But then we also know that from all these casting announcements that almost all these characters are original, right? They're not in any of those books. I think there's only one or two which plays a really significant role, but the rest are original characters. So there are a couple of directions that could go in, and I'll probably, we probably will need a whole other episode to talk about. But I think there's already a lot of clues in some of those character descriptions, like what we're hearing from the characters in the Sisterhood school, what we're hearing about the Atreides and the Harkonnen at the time. So I think. I think that they have a lot to work with, and it is exciting that it is going to be like completely original stories being told in the Dune universe.
The Duneverse, books, comics, games, collectibles, and more.
So this past December 8th at 2022's The Game Awards, Funcom unveiled the first early in-game footage for Dune Awakening. This came in the form of a pre-alpha teaser trailer showing some stunning scenes from desert to urban area and some of the features we can expect. So Johnny, I want to ask you, has this trailer changed your perspective of this game?
Well, here's an answer. I have not watched the trailer. So it's safe to say my perspective has not changed. And I don't anticipate it changing anytime soon, because I can't bring myself to get too heavily involved with that. And just, I don't know. I know Garin has much more expressive thoughts on this than I do, so I'll let him talk in a second. But I don't know, this type of game, and I just don't think that I'm going to be the target audience for it. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I would love like Guerrilla or like Sony Santa Monica or Naughty Dog to get some Dune rights and to make like an epic third person action adventure game like in the Dune world. I think that would be my dream game. But this is probably not going to be it. But I'm excited to hear what everyone else has to say about it.
So Johnny, it's more that you want sort of a more action-oriented first-person perspective game. Is that what you're saying?
Not even action, because I know this game is not going to be heavy on action, is my understanding, based on the type of game that it is. But like, this game is more. It's not like a strategy game necessarily, but it's more like exploring and what's the genre called, Garin?
MMO.
Yes,
Open
world.
survival.
Yeah, survival. Yeah, that to me probably isn't like narrative driven enough quite for me to be able to latch onto it. But well, I mean, again, what I've seen, I did see a glimpse of the trailer. I didn't watch the whole thing. I saw a lot of images as well. It looks interesting. It's just I don't think I don't know if I'm also confused by some things like the worm design for one. I don't know what's happening with that. You probably know what I'm talking about, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not sold, I guess is my short long answer.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I think my 17-year-old son really there's a game called Ark, I believe, that's a survival, open world survival MMO. And he just loves it. And he's playing something different now, but he really liked it for a long time. And there must be something, I haven't played that game, but the idea of being able to enter Arrakis, to be in that world and to know what I know about the story, and being such a fan of Frank Herbert's universe that he's created, being able to actually almost on my own explore that. And I'm sure you're faced with lots of challenges. You're faced with threats, and maybe there's even puzzles and things, strategies that you have to figure out to survive. I mean, this is maybe not your thing, Johnny. This is totally my thing. Like, I absolutely love this type of thing, because as a kid, I was so into, this is maybe before all of your time, but just the choose your own adventure books. You know, we didn't have computers back then, so you were able to read a book, but you could actually determine and make choices throughout the book. And every time you read it, it was a little bit of a different experience. So this is just that on a massive scale in this universe that I've loved all these years. So it just looks beautiful. I mean, a game like this, you've got to make it gorgeous. It's got to be completely attractive, believable. Like you, Johnny, I'm a little saddened that it doesn't exactly match the film designs, like the worm and other things. But it's still the world that I know, and it's still Dune. So I just hope they do it right. As I understand it, it's really complex to build an effective game in this genre, the open survival type game, and you have to bring an audience. That's what makes it compelling, is when more and more people are playing it. For instance, like the strategy game Dune Spice Wars, which has become very popular and has really gained an audience, thank goodness. You know, this one's going to have to do the same. So it'll be interesting to see if that happens. But I would say they're hitting all the right notes to have this thing have the right look and feel. And for a fan like me who likes this type of game, I mean, I can't wait. I'm super excited.
Well, I was hoping I can play Spice Wars during my stay at the hospital, but sadly, like I said, no Wi-Fi connection really. I just watched the trailer. Garin, I'm surprised you didn't talk about the ornithopters in the trailer. I see you were talking, I'm like, and he's going to start talking about the ornithopters right about, no.
I got to take a break because I've said too much about ornithopters. So I got to take a break, Simon.
Okay. But I'm kind of like between both of you. I'm excited to play this game, and I still think some of the designs of the worms and all that can still be early designs, and the game's not finished. It looks like it has a late 2023 release or early 2024, which is good. That'll give me time to get a PS5 and play Jedi Survivor and finish that game and then go right into this. But I'm not a big gamer, but yet as a Dune fan, I want to play this game because I want to walk around in that environment. I want to live on Arrakis. I want to feel it. And then, you know, I might get this game, play it for an hour and be like, well, this sucks. I wasted $70 or $60 on this, but it's a big question mark. But I'm in both camps. I'm not a diehard gamer, but yet I want to be immersed. I want to be taken away. I want to play this game.
So I just want to make a point that I'm the oldest guy on this team and I'm the gamer. What does that mean?
Well, Garin, I also remember those books, by the way, the Choose Your Own Adventure books.
Oh, okay, I'm not
with
the only
gray, with the gray spines and all that. I remember getting those and just being blown away by them and being like, oh my God, these are awesome. And honestly, you never got the same adventure unless you went through the same path all the time. You change one chapter, it changes your whole entire adventure. And there was a lot of them, but I remember also.
It was cutting edge in 1981. I'm telling you guys, it was cutting edge.
Well, I read them in 87, 88, so a little bit after you.
Yeah, I have to say, like, I'm definitely excited to play this game. I like the aspect that it can be, you know, like set on Dune, set on Arrakis, and like an immersive experience. And I also think the community aspect can be interesting. I mean, like having a community of people who are enthusiastic about Dune and they're playing the game and engaging with each other. I think maybe the main concern for me at this time, like for like games in this genre and like online massively multiplayer games in general, there is a large time commitment, right? Like, so if you really want to get the most of it out of this type of game, you know, you have to really engage with it a lot. So that would be like my only concern, like being, as you know, on top of working full time and running with editing on Dune Newsnet, you know, it's I'm definitely going to play the game, but like how much I'm going to get it to play it with, that's a different question.
Certainly not against or downing anyone that wants to play this game or is excited about. I honestly, I may end up playing it anyway, just because I love Dune and I think the concept is cool. And then I think the more Dune games, the better. And if this one's a success, then hopefully we'll get more. Just like we were talking about with the Sisterhood show. At this stage in the Dune, you know, lifespan, just anything, it matters. And so I'm excited to see kind of, and Simon also pointed out that the designs could change, the ultimate look of the game could change. So there's a lot in the air with this one, I think, in particular. But yeah, I'm going to be very curious. I'll be waiting all year to hear what Garin has to say. I don't know if they've set a release date yet or not, but I'll be looking for that review.
Yeah, no release date, and this is pretty early in the development because this is a pre-alpha trailer, so there's still a ways to go. And hopefully they take their time, right? You don't want them to rush a game like this and then like you know, have a bad release associated with Dune. So I'm hoping that they take as much time as they need. Okay, that's a wrap for this week. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and yeah, look forward to some more news and more Dune Talk coming. A lot more Dune Talk coming this year.
Hey, this was Simon Dowdy. You can find me on social as Dowdy, pretty much on all of them. Once again, thank you everyone for your support while we were gone. Super excited. 2023. Hopefully next year for our holiday special, we can all wear ugly Dune sweaters. Let's really push that. You know, I want an ugly Shai Hulu sweater for Christmas next year. But great being back, and I can't wait to go on this crazy roller coaster that's going to be leading up to part 2 of this film that we're all excited about.
Yes, Simon, I wish you hadn't mentioned the merch because my birthday, Dune comes out the beginning of November. My birthday is in November, and Christmas, of course, is after that. So I'm just going to be drowning in it. Hopefully, that's my goal. But yes, this is Johnny Sobchak again. Thank you so much all for listening and tuning back in. I know we had quite a little layoff there, but more than anything, just glad Simon is okay and on the mend and at home. So and glad to see all the gang here again. And Johnny Sobchak, that's my handle on Twitter, on Letterboxd, Instagram. So you can find me there and stay tuned because as Simon said, you know, this is going to be a really, really big, exciting year.
Hey, yeah, this is Garin Granada. Thank you guys for joining us. We love your support. We love talking about this franchise. So glad to have Simon back. He was gone for quite some time and we really missed him. So just glad you're back, Simon. Glad we're all back together again. And thanks for everyone for listening.
Yeah, and this is Marcus Gabriel. You can find me writing and posting on DuneNewsNet.com and at DuneNewsNet. Yeah, and really glad to be back here with everybody on the show. And as mentioned, we have a lot more to come this year. We're also going to be doing some great stuff for the community. So stay tuned and take care.
We hope you've enjoyed Dune Talk. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you know when the next episode drops. Stay tuned to DuneNewsNet.com and add us to your social feeds. Be the first to hear breaking news and reviews.